Hey everybody, my name is Sorvoche. I am a systemic family therapist, and today I want to talk about a topic that is at the core of my heart, and the topic is trauma. So, by definition, the Sorvoche definition, trauma is an impoverishing and debilitating internal response to a perceived threat. The key words there being debilitating and impoverishing, perceived and internal. So, for starters, impoverishing and debilitating is something that hinders you from the normal day to day activities because you feel incapacitated to go by just the most easiest things due to something that you are going through, in this case, trauma. You are struggling to get out of bed, you're struggling to cover the sort of work that you generally do, you're struggling to exercise, you're struggling to just process something in your mind and just sometimes you begin to overthink it, sometimes you waste, so your body begins to waste, or sometimes you gain weight, you struggle to eat, or sometimes you begin to eat a lot just because you are trying to find coping mechanisms. Sometimes it goes to the extremes of things like sexual promiscuity, as well as even the substance and drug misuse, leading thereby to addictions and all other, like a whole plethora of other challenges and problems. So, those are just some of the symptoms that show that a person is struggling. So, things like insomnia, loss of appetite, increased appetite, depending on the situation and scenario, may actually be based on trauma. Sometimes you struggle to just walk or drive or cover your journal work, and sometimes I would want to give you a scenario where you receive the worst news. Trauma is something that you can find from ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences, if we're talking about childhood trauma, or there also are other subtle and usually unseen and unrecognized or not easily recognized causes for trauma. For example, neglect. It could also be things like divorce or separation. Well, these fall under the ACEs, but it's actually so sad that a lot of people don't get to see it and put much respect or recognition of the devastating and debilitating effects of such things, especially when it's happening within the parental subsystem and the person as a child. So you find that even blended families as subtle cause of trauma, as well as just parental absenteeism. It could be based on them being in the diaspora. It could also be based on the fact that they're working out of town, or the other parent has got another family, and it could be any of those little things, or it could just be seeing your mother cry every day, or just the emotional absence of one or both parents. So there is just a whole lot that can traumatize a child, or just the poverty itself, financial situation, and any other of the things. And the reason why I say internal is that it is something that is not seen by everybody. Sometimes a person will be going through the worst phase of the trauma that they're experiencing, and people might not even be able to see it or understand that this person is going through the most. And the other term is perceived threats. The reason why I say perceived is that trauma, what is traumatizing to one person might not be traumatizing to the next person. What is traumatizing to me might not have been traumatizing to you. What is traumatizing even to my own sibling might not be traumatizing to me. So it's so delicate and it's so individualistic and personal. But at the same time, it has deep capacity of influencing and affecting the people that are around us. Excuse me. So you find that trauma is so deep and so huge. but I want to zone in a little bit on what is called post spouse betrayal trauma syndrome, where a person can experience not these experiences can also be linked into other forms of trauma, but I just want to sorry emphasize on an area that is something that is the core of my practice, and that is post spouse betrayal trauma syndrome. And this can be experienced by either genders. There is no gender specification. It can be tightness of chest, it can be heavy breathing, it can be shallow breathing, it can be lowered pulse, or it can be increased pulse. So there are somatic signs that a person might be going through the most. It could actually be the butterflies in the stomach, the running stomach, the aching of like a stiff neck or neck pain, or it could be shoulder pain, it could be lower back pain, it could actually be just a headache. So it really depends, because when trauma comes into the body, it normally just attaches itself to an area that is already compromised, or where there is a weakness in your body, or it could be a weak immune system. And also sometimes you find people can waste in terms of their body weight, or they can gain weight because sometimes they get to eat a lot, or they get to stop eating, or it can actually affect their metabolism. So you find all those things and many more come into play. So you find that when a woman or a man has realize that there's been a deep betrayal in their union, that person goes through a lot, and sometimes they ask a lot of questions and they want to try to understand a lot. They blame themselves, they blame you, they hate themselves, they hate you, they go back and forth in their head, because what they are doing is they are trying to get the understanding, to get a reason, but sometimes there's just never a reason. So, what I've noticed as I've written in my book, which is Covenant Marriage Sanctity Pursuit, is that when a person is traumatized, especially by a spouse, it's like their world is shattered, it's like the entire ground has been ripped off from their under their feet, and they're just falling and falling and falling, and feels like there's oblivion, and they're trying to understand why. And like I said, sometimes there's self-blame, there's sense of rejection, there's humiliation, there's shame, there's to a point where it can be a fixation, and they want to understand, they want to understand, they want to understand why, because this trust between a husband and wife, or a wife and husband, between spouses, covenant spouses, is something so deep, and it's something that is expected. So when a person realizes that the person they love most and have given their soul and heart and everything to, or they trust, in as much as, the funny thing that I've noticed is when a person is saying you cheated on me, and having those um, concerns and inclinations and the signs and telltale, they're never prepared enough for when they actually do get that confirmation that it did happen. It's like time freezes, it's like the moment freezes, their heart freezes. And it sort of becomes like everything they have known and believed seems to be a lie, or appears to have been a complete lie. So, in trying to find and understand what happened or what is happening, in most cases, that is impoverishing and it is debilitating. And when they keep asking and asking and asking, it might seem like they are taunting you or tormenting you, but to them, they are really desperate. It's like they're trying to find to breathe. It's exactly, it's like trying to breathe. They are trying to find a reason, they are trying to intellectualize, but they're failing to. However, they're trying to work it out, it's not working. So they feel metaphorically, like they're drowning, they're drowning, and it's almost like they feel like the only way they can be able to live again if is if they understand what happened. And the reason why is they're trying to prevent it from ever happening again. They're trying to, it's like self-preservation kicking in. It's like they're trying to just save themselves again and again and again and again, and they're trying to find out, if I done this way, would it have stopped? If I done this way, would it have stopped this from happening? And they're also trying to prevent ever being in that position again. So it's more like a survival mode, a survival mode that they get into. So that's one thing that most people that have actually betrayed their spouses then fail to understand. It's one area that the person who has brought in the other person fails to understand. And you know, the most weird or disturbing part of that is that, in as much as one spouse may have done the exact same thing the other spouse has done, remember what I said, it's like when a person is drowning, it's like they're submerged underwater, and what they want is to come back and breathe. So it doesn't matter that there's another person drowning right next to them, because in that moment the desperation is, I need to come out for air, I need to come out for air. It's because it's they're experiencing that pain, that trauma, that heartache, and to them getting answers as the brains, as human beings, we are subconsciously wired to believe that if we understand the problem, then it's easier to get the solution. So to them, it's like they are submerged underwater and they're not able to breathe and they just want to come up for air. And that understanding of what happened, how did it happen, and what could have I done differently is sort of like a preservation to say, if ever this happens, I want to preserve myself. So it's like they're locked in that moment, in that trauma response mode. And they're grasping for air and grasping for air and grasping for air. So when they're trying to get answers, just picture that as a grasp for air and grasp for air. In as much as sometimes that can be a deterrent to the healing process, is also very harmful to try to actually cut it off at its infancy. But at the same time, there are healthier ways of maneuvering this and getting the answers, and at times, therapy or seeking professional help actually becomes a very helpful way, because now, together with another person in a safe space, you both are able to then work on how, again, it can also be suffocating to the one who has to constantly repeat themselves and trying to repeat themselves to give them these answers.